I see a lot of staffing issues in dental offices lately. Everyone is having a hard time finding staff.
One girl said to me, she said, I have more to do than just stay on hold.
The office manager, for some reason or another, never bothered to balance until the end of the month. We want to help the front desk. We want to take this away from them so that they can concentrate on patients or not worry about answering the phones or holding forever with an insurance company. When we take an office over, they're a little bit happier because they don't have the stress of handling these tasks. I call myself the dental insurance detective. I love finding out the why.
We are back with another edition of Nobody Told Me That. And friends, I have a friend on the podcast with me. Michelle Repash is on here. And hi, Michelle. How are things going?
Hi, Teresa. Things are well. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to get into some billing nitty gritty because she's a biller and she has a lot of stuff to share with us about how she does her job, how you can do your job better, like what's going on in the world of billing. Your company is Integrity Dental Billing. And of course, we'll put a link in the show notes to that so they can check you out. But you have been in the industry, I think as long as I have, it maybe more, but honestly, you've seen a lot. So how long have you been in the industry and how long have you been billing? Dental billing.
35 years. 35 years, and strictly dental billing has been close to 5 years.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I think I'm probably right around there. I mean, one of the things that we kind of laugh about when a bunch of us like old billers get together, and Michelle is part of Dental Revenue Network, which is my billing membership. And one of the things we talk about is like how much we miss things like Trojan, because Trojan used to be like we always took a look at that, and we can explain that in a little bit. And then there was a newsletter called the Insurance Solutions newsletter that I think all of us read. And I don't know about you, but every time I got this newsletter, it was in the mail because nothing was electronic back then. I would save it. Like I would wait until the end of the day when I could like really focus on it. And sometimes I even took it home and was like, "Ooh, this is so good." And I think that's how I knew I was an insurance nerd. Is that
right?
How did you feel? Like were you the
I
same?
did the same thing, Teresa, the same thing. I didn't have time to read during the day in the office as it was, it was so busy. But when I got home at night, I would lie in bed and just read all the dental news.
Yeah. And I know that we're nerds for it, but I always say to dentists, like, I know that when I talk about, how much I love insurance, well, working with insurance, I say, you can laugh, but you want someone like me and like you to be looking at your books.
Mhm.
So after 35 years of working in a dental office and seeing billing go through its many changes, is there anything that's really stuck out to you? Like of all the billing changes that you've seen?
Well, let's see. I started back in the pegboard days, paper appointment books. So if you want to talk about changes, there have been so many changes, but I love not all of them, but most of them. Things seem to be more streamlined now. The only thing I do not like is that our insurance maximums and they have not changed from when I first started in dentistry in 1991. I had a $1,000 maximum, and I still have a $1,000 maximum. So I just think that we're not really coming up with the times as far as that is concerned, and that needs some help. But as far as technology, just wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and the numbers have moved a little bit with the maximums, but it's not anywhere like keeping up with inflation,
Right.
right? Like
No.
you
Right.
would expect it to be up at 5 or 6 thousand
Right.
for a yearly benefit, and it's
Sure.
just not there. So I
Right.
mean, the numbers are different, but my goodness, not what we
Not
want.
that much. Yeah.
No, and you said something that I'm sure some of the younger listeners, because I have people listening who are just fresh in dentistry. You said something called pegboard. And honestly, we're a dying breed, you and me. Like, you don't see pegboard anymore. And for those of you who are like, what are they talking about? Like, this is like, we did work on like some of us used the folder, and the folder was an envelope. Like the folder that you had all of your clinical notes on, it honestly was like an envelope. And then we would write down, how much it was and all of that. And the bill would be right on that envelope too. So how did you manage your pegboard process? Do you
Oh my
remember?
goodness. I do not remember
That's
that. I don't remember how I handled that, but I remember constantly flipping back and forth through the
Mhm.
appointment book.
Right, right.
Constantly flipping back and forth. It wasn't as easy as just typing a date in, and there it is.
Well, and the other part too, so with the balances would be written on these envelopes, and you would have to pretty much like move the balances from one column to another,
Right.
right? So that's where, we were like doing, it was almost like the Chinese had the abacus, like that's very
Right.
similar to that, like if you
Yes.
can imagine. And even in these folders for you that are, if you've been in dentistry less than 15 years, all of the x-rays were in these folders.
Yes.
We would have to mount the x-rays or they would be in these envelopes. And whenever a doctor wanted to look at the x-rays, they would just like turn the envelope over on the counter and they would look at each individual film. And man, it was just a whole different way. And then you would never send the original x-ray to insurance, but then you were like, how do I send it to them? And that's when you realize you got to start taking duplicate x-ray.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, it was a whole thing. So, and then the appointment book, you had the paper appointment book, and then you always had to have a second appointment book towards the end of the year because 6 months out, you needed to schedule the 6 month out. So, and how many people did you have up front with you?
It was just myself at
Wow.
first, just only me when I
Yeah.
first started. And then eventually, of course, everything grew and it became several people up front. But by that time, we were into software for dentists that wanted to let the paper go.
Yeah.
And I think there are still some out there that don't want to let the paper go.
Oh, there are definitely. My friend Dana, who runs Navoni, she's a Dentrix trainer, Dana Johnson. She does so much paperless training still. And it's just, she's busy. And it's doctors are still working off of these paper charts, not so much the billing piece, but the actual like charts and stuff.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we actually, you and I submitted claims by mail. Do you remember submitting your first electronic claim and you were like this, I don't trust this?
Yes,
This. Yeah. And then
I sure
what,
do.
what a lot of us did, people, is we would send the thing by regular mail anyways, because we didn't trust.
Yep.
And then we just had to do a leap of faith. So we've come an awful long way. What on earth made you stick with billing? Like, what is it about billing that you really enjoy?
I just found my niche. I found what I really enjoyed about dentistry. I left the office approximately 4 years ago, the office setting, and started strictly just billing from home. And I just fell in love with it. Fell in love with it. I call myself the dental insurance detective.
Nice.
Yeah. And you have to be a detective.
Yeah.
You really do, to find out what's going on with this claim and where's the payment. It's just there's so much that's to it. And I just really enjoy doing that.
And the whole piece about making sure that we're appealing. I mean, I was talking
Mhm.
actually, whenever I talk to a doctor, sometimes they're just shocked that you can't actually even appeal. A lot of people that we're training in our offices are so new. I don't think a lot of them realize that we don't have to take that as like the last word. We should
Right.
push back. So
Uh-huh.
when you reach out to your clients, first of all, they probably hire you because things are out of control at their office, right? But are
Correct.
you able to like immediately show an ROI? It's been my experience that billing companies can pretty much immediately show
Yeah.
ROI. How is that you're able to do that?
I'm able to do that by just going through, I pick up their 90-day claims, go
Mhm.
through that, and I can usually spot it, right away where the issue lies, with the claims,
Yeah.
whether, it's an MPI-2 number or whatever it may be, providers, that kind of a thing, attachments, and I just
Mhm.
get it fixed and get that money coming in.
So
Yeah.
tell me about the NPI stuff, because what I want to do is maybe say something that people will go, wait a second, I was supposed to do that. Like,
Yeah.
let's help them out. So what is it when you find NPI issues? What do you find?
Okay, what I find is that there are offices that have associates and they're using the owner doctor's MPI, individual MPI number. That is his individual MPI number. Every doctor has their own individual MPI number.
Mhm.
The business itself, Teresa Duncan Family Dental should
Yeah.
have its own MPI number as the billing provider.
Mhm.
So we know that we have the rendering provider as always the doctor who does the treatment. Billing and pay to provider should be the business, which would need an MPI-2 number in order to get those claims paid correctly.
It's just best practice to do that. I remember talking to RCM manager And she's dealing with DSO right now who doesn't want to doesn't understand why they need to set up a billing NPI. And we're kind of like, it's best practice. And, so we went and found all these examples from all the carriers that say, this is how we want you to set it up. And I think she was able to get them to do it. But I think that's a big issue that we run into first as managers and then as billing company, people, that there's a lot of things that are best practices that are not optional. Like they really should be done. It's not, but I think in dentistry, a lot of times we feel like we can do it this way because nobody's really pushing back and we don't realize like that we're really shooting ourselves in the foot. So when
Right.
you find that, is it usually because I would guess it's because they just didn't know, or did they purposely set it up? I mean, what do you
No,
normally
they
find?
just didn't know.
Yeah.
They had no idea that they were supposed to have an MPI-2, and it's literally, on the internet, get your MPI-2 and start making it work. That seems to be the biggest issue that I found, is that many just don't have that MPI-2 number.
And then you said attachments and all of that. So you find if it's over 90, it's probably because they're missing key information. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, the idea is to get the claim paid first shot, the first time it goes to the insurance company. So we always want to be sending clean claims, which includes all of the attachments that you may need for that claim. I send clinical notes always clinical notes, x-rays, perio charts, whatever that claim may need to get it paid. And if
Mhm.
the doctor has taken an IO photo of the tooth, even if it's not warranted to be sent, I send it anyway.
Okay.
Because the more we give them, the less opportunity they have to deny the claim.
Right, right. We make the case. I mean, we make a
Yes.
good case, right? That was one of the conversations in the membership as we were talking a lot about. I think I made the comment where I wish I could wave a magic wand and have people stop writing narratives because our carriers don't want the narratives. They want clinical notes. And time again, I keep hearing from my contacts at the carriers, like, I thought you were telling people this. We still get narratives all the time. And I'm like, I can't help you. I try to reach as many as possible. So how cool is it though, when you tell the insurance coordinator or the person who used to be in charge of it at your offices, like, you don't have to do that anymore. Like, we just need the doctor to do the notes now. But that's a whole different thing. Like, have you run into a resistant doctor that doesn't have good clinical notes? How are we supposed to fix that?
I have run into a doctor that I have, my soap note. I have templates, actually
Mhm.
soap note templates that I send to my clients. And not that they have to use those per se, but at least, in a soap format.
Sure.
And this person just did not want to do that. They just, wanted to write prep tooth number 30 seat crown. So, and that just doesn't fly, and it's not
Yeah.
going to fly. The more information, as I said, that we can give to the insurance company, the better chance that they're going to pay the first time.
Right.
So we know that most insurances pay for decay or fracture on a crown.
Hmm.
Well, you can't just put tooth was fractured. I mean,
Yeah.
where's the fracture?
Right.
Where does it extend to? So just the more the better. And they
And
want to keep that documentation up for themselves anyway. So I mean, because then you have a clear view of what actually took place.
and it protects you too. Like, what happens if you get sued? What happens
Right,
if there's a complaint lodged? Like, to me, it's just, if I spent all that time getting a dental license, I would want to protect it.
right.
But it is hard to convince people who have never ever had a threat of an audit or anything like that. But times are different. I think it's fair to say that when you and I started out, there weren't a lot of audits. There weren't a lot of, I mean, really, there were bad players out there, but nothing like the amount of audits and scrutiny that we're seeing now. I think it's just
Right.
very different now. And of course, the computer algorithms are identifying these outliers much more than they did before. I mean, before it would be a dental consultant reviewer saying, I think I've seen this x-ray before. Oh, that looks familiar. Now they can pick it up. It's so much easier. One thing that we talked about in the pregame was identifying when things are not kosher. So you mentioned finding embezzlement in one of your clients. First of all, that's a very emotional issue, right? Like when you find it. So walk us through, what did you find? What made you think, wait a second, what's going on here? Talk us through that whole situation.
Sure. So I was posting insurance payments, and the office manager, for some reason or another, never bothered to balance until the end of the month. Not, I don't suggest that at all. But at the end of the month, she would say, hey, this day doesn't balance. the stay doesn't balance. Well, my notes were there that I had posted a payment, but I actually went back through the audit trail and checks had been deleted.
Oh,
Yes, so they still, the claim was still open and it was in the AR. So that was actually an easy find. I mean, people are so much more creative than that, but they were just deleting insurance checks and they were depositing them to their own personal checking account and did not
wow.
have one issue with doing that.
Wow.
So yeah, it started off small, got a little bit bigger by the time I found it. So
Mhm.
mhm.
And how was the doctor's reaction when you told them?
Not very happy,
Yeah.
not very
Was
happy at
this someone
all.
who'd been there for a long time
It
or?
was somebody who had been with the office since inception.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So
That's heartbreaking.
yes, it was heartbreaking. It was because they were like a family.
So what happened with the employee?
She went to jail.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, hats off to that doctor because a lot of times doctors don't
They don't
take
want
the
to.
extra. Yeah, they don't want to do it. They don't want to either. I mean, of course, if she's been there forever, they know each other's families. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there. That makes me so sad to hear. And doctors do trust managers, especially if you've been with them from the
I
beginning.
know.
A lot of
Yeah,
trust in there.
right.
Were you with the same doctor for a long time?
I was.
Yeah, same here. I mean, basically, I was happy when he looked over things, but he didn't do it as often as probably I would recommend,
Right.
but I mean, thankfully I wasn't doing anything, but my goodness, would have been probably pretty easy.
Right.
And we hear that from our fellow billers, right? Like they run into this, they can't figure out where these audit trails are coming from. And if you don't know what an audit trail is, every software has the ability to run a report to show the transactions, but you have to have passwords enabled in order, or else the audit trail doesn't show anything, right? So, Michelle, you were able to show this person using their password had gone in, deleted the checks, and you could show that time and date and all of that. So, my experience has been that doctors get familiar with audit trails only when they have to, not
Right.
because they're being proactive. So, if
Right.
you're a doctor listening, I would do it. And you know what? If
Mhm.
you're a manager listening, I would do it too, because you might be working with a biller or somebody in the office that isn't necessarily on the up and up. So that's another thing. So did this person the person that went to jail, did she not like that you were coming in and doing things?
Did not want me there.
Yeah.
No, did not want me there, fought tooth and nail, tried to tell the doctor that what I was doing was incorrect and she doesn't know what she's doing, but he held fast. He did.
Yeah.
He held strong and, it all came out in the wash. I
So
mean, at that time, when it was initially discovered, everybody was just using random passwords. Like everybody knew everybody's password.
oh
So
wow.
the first thing I had him do was make everybody change their password and nobody was to know. And that's how we were able to break it down as to who it was, although it was suspected, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. So when you're dealing with a new client or onboarding or whatever, do you ever get the feeling something's up by the reaction of the team?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well, yeah, we want to help the front desk. We want to take this away from them so that they can concentrate on patients or not worry about answering the phones or holding forever on, with an insurance company.
yeah.
We want to take that away from them. That's what we like to do on the back end. And when somebody just doesn't want that kind of help, that's usually a big red flag for me.
So when I was in office, I would have probably put up some resistance, right? Because I would think, oh my gosh, they're not going to be able to do the job as
Correct.
well as yeah, I mean, that's just natural, right? And
Of
over
course.
time, I've realized that I think that to myself, anytime there's new technology or any new services, I always think, well, how would I, as a manager, have taken to this? And there were so many things that I wanted to do that I could have gotten to. I feel like offloading this stuff to people who really love it, especially for an office manager that is not very well staffed at the office. Like to me, it's just a no brainer. But how is it convincing a manager to let go? That's something that we talk about a lot on the membership is change management, right? Like, how do we convince the team we're here to help, not to get them fired?
That's the whole point is that we want to help them so that they can do their jobs more effectively. They can be there doing treatment plans or with the patients or monitoring staff or, checking supply, whatever it is they have to do. Office managers just wear so many hats. So if this is one less they have to wear, and it's a big hat,
Yeah.
And as it's a big hat, and like, we'll go back to those hold times, right? But I mean, holding for an insurance company can just be an extravagant a deal throughout your day. But if we're doing that for them, then they have the time to be able to do those other things. And maybe they can just work an 8-hour day that day instead of 12 hours or having to work overtime to get their claims caught up. That's why we like to do it. I really don't go into it wanting to find fraud or embezzlement. That's not the case. I just do it because I love it. Well, we do it because we love it and just want to help.
So one thing I've noticed with the companies is that you're offering a couple different services, and I would love to know what you offer because I think, and this is something that if you're a manager, you should know, not all companies offer everything. There's quite a few companies that don't do eligibility and benefits because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of companies that just do cleanup because they don't want a long-term contract. They just want to clean up and get out. There's some that are willing to take over everything, including the last mile, which is sending out statements. So not all companies are made the same. So what services do you offer and why those particular services? Because I'm always curious, like, what is it that you don't want to do? Like, what can you get rid of because you don't want to do it?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what we do at Integrity Dental Billing is verifications because that's key. If you have an accurate insurance verification for a patient, less apt to make, mistakes or errors, that way. So, and then we also do dental billing services, which entails sending claims once they're batched. The office would, take care of the provider and the procedures, and then I would send them, or we would send them from that point on with all the necessary attachments and claims cleanup and appeals. Always send appeals. If something denies the first time, it gets an appeal unless it's even frequency. I'll even do it for that sometimes because the insurance company is not always accurate. And then we also send statements. So we close the circle.
And I was always surprised by that, knowing that you guys do that. I mean, it makes sense. You're managing the whole revenue cycle, but I always figured the first generation of billing companies were just pretty much tackling verification, eligibility, and claim sending out. And then, I mean, look how much is involved in insurance. Now there's all these different, it's so specific now that there are companies that do just this or just that. And can you imagine back in the day when it was just us doing manager, insurance, and treatment coordinator, and I was an assistant for a while? Like, it's just so different. Dentistry is just so different now. And even with as much technology as we have, it's still like, it's not enough for one person. One person just is too, they're going to be stressed out. You're going to end up losing your people. So, how are you seeing the workforce in dentistry? Like, what's your take? Have you seen a lot of turnover in the offices that you're talking to? Are they staying because the load is taken off? Like, what do you see with workforce?
I see a lot of staffing issues in dental offices lately. That's been for some time now. I think that there have been lots of staffing issues. There's usually when we take an office over, the staff will tend to stay, the front desk staff, because we've removed that from their plate. And now they're a little bit happier because they don't have the stress of handling these tasks. But it's all over. Everyone is having a hard time finding staff. And I think that's why outsourcing is really becoming more prominent.
It really makes me sad. I mean, I love the industry. I can't imagine people wanting to leave, but I get it. And between you and me, we probably trained hundreds of people. And no matter what, even the best support, sometimes they're just like, I'm done. I'm not going to live my life. One girl said to me, she said, I have more to do than just stay on hold. And I was like, I get it. I totally get it. So when you started the company, though, you probably didn't imagine that all you would do was just be on hold. I mean, what made you say, I want to do this full time?
Because I love the detective part of it. I love
Okay.
being the dental insurance detective. I love finding out the why. I love when a rep on the phone tells me that the claim was paid, but it's still open on my end. Well, tell me when it was paid. I don't just let it go. I have to know when, how, why, what's the payment number, how was it paid, where address did it go to? I have to find out everything about that claim. And I just love doing that. I wish I could tell you why. It's just something that I just love to do. A total dental nerd, I guess, if you want to call me that, but I love doing that.
When you started your company though, and this, let's talk a little bit about the entrepreneur side. It is lonely sometimes. Do you have a team? I'm sure they're remote. Like, how do you work all day by yourself? I think that's a huge transition. Some of our manager colleagues don't realize, like, you really are all alone all day.
I have no problem doing that. I don't. I have no problem. I put the earbuds in,
Yep.
but nobody told me that in my earbuds and just post away or at work
Yep.
claims or
Yep.
yeah. I just have a great time doing that. And if I do get lonely, it's, one of my employees, I'll shoot a text or something. Hey, let's meet for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
We'll get
Yeah.
on Google Chat and just meet for a little bit and
You can
laugh
have
a little
dental
bit.
revenue network up on the side too and say hi
Yeah,
over there. I know you do.
right, exactly.
But that is something that when you're starting out on your own, there's so many little things. Like, was there anything that really surprised you about being your own person now? Or was there something you were like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I needed to get that? I mean, for some people, it's I need to get what kind of insurance? I need to get this. And the cybersecurity insurance has been a hot topic, like, because
Right.
it's not cheap. But
No,
when you're dealing with personal information as an entrepreneur, guess what? This is
right.
what you have to do. So what
Exactly.
were the kind of gotcha moments where you're like, uh-oh, I need to do this, this, and this?
For me, it was having remote employees in different states
Yeah.
that, I had to register with that state for tax purposes. Just not something I knew, praise my accountant, right? I mean, thank
Mhm.
God for him. But
Yeah.
I did not know I had to do that. There were many things when I was starting off that I just did not know that I had to do. I mean, I knew I had to get an EIN number. I
Hmm.
knew, a lot of things that I had to do, but that tax thing got me. I did not know
Wow.
that I had to
Okay.
register with each state for each employee. So it was not a big deal. There had been no payroll yet, so everything was fine. But that just that got me that,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So yeah, that was it for me. Otherwise, I think I was pretty well prepared. I met with an attorney. He gave great advice, and told me what I needed, did my contract for me,
Mhm.
and we just got up and going.
That's important though, that the whole contract thing, because I see sometimes on the remote Facebook group, does anybody have a contract I can use? I'm taking on my first client. It's like, what? Like,
Mm-mm.
why should they not do that, Michelle?
Right.
Why should they not do that?
They should not do that because you do not want to just have a blanket contract that someone else is using. You don't know where they got it from. You want to consult with an attorney, builders, and make sure that, the needs for your state are being met. Make sure you explain what your goals are, who your employees are, where they're at, if you have employees. There are just so many things, and you want to make sure that your contract that you have for your clients is a legal binding contract.
Hmm. Hmm. We, on our last call, so we went over the fact that if you're dealing with government contracts, whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, or Medicare Advantage, there's liabilities for the billing companies. So you've got to bake that into your contracts. You also have to have something in there about what if the other companies ask for money back? Do you have any culpability in that? Do you have to pay on that? And this is something that most of the billing companies have had to find out, unfortunately. So we had a lot of conversations about that. But yeah, you can't just use someone else's. I mean, especially if they're not doing any Medicaid billing and you are, your Medicaid billing contract is very different. And then the whole cybersecurity thing, which is just
Is another ball of wax.
avenue.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so are your employees or are they contract workers?
they are employees.
Okay. All right. Now that's different because I know a lot of companies use contract workers. Is there a reason why you decided to do employee?
There is, because I want to make sure that everything is done to the best possible standard. I don't want somebody to come in and say, well, this is the way I've always done it, because quite
Um,
honestly, I don't know where they learned that from. I want to make sure that everything is right. And that's just how it has to be. So yeah, we had to go W-2 because of that. They would not classify as a 1099, because if you're a 1099, you just kind of come in and do your job the way you know how to do it and use your own skills, which is fantastic. And I'm not saying that there are not many people who have extremely terrific skills. Just I want everything done like by the law.
Well, and your way, right? So if you require them to do it your way, that's pretty much employment, not
Right.
contract. And
Right.
so you have onboarding that you put them through and all of it, and they're using your equipment and software. And see, that's another thing too. I think a lot of companies, they don't provide that, and there's an opportunity for error there. And some of the people that we know in the industry who maybe they don't have a lot of experience and they don't realize that you can't just use this software because it's not HIPAA compliant versus this software. And so that's a huge liability for a lot of the dentists. And that's something that I think a lot of them are finding out, unfortunately, by trial and error, because unless they talk about it amongst themselves, they really don't know. They're trying to keep track of everything, these poor doctors.
Right.
No.
Exactly.
So what if somebody wanted to come and work for a billing company? Let me put you on this because I know I get asked all the time when I'm on the road, I want to go out on my own. I want to do this. Do you know anybody who's hiring? And I honestly just say to, go to the remote sourcing group and see who you like, who you gel with, and all of that. But even then, that's not really a good option because not everybody that's a great billing company is active on there. Like a lot of them lurk, right? So if somebody wanted to come and work for your company, what qualities are you looking for in that type of person?
I am looking for someone who can work actually from home alone,
Okay.
not because there are many people that need to have people around them. They look for that social aspect of being at work. So that is, a must have high-speed internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I have actually a quiz on my website. They have to answer every question. They're all required questions on my website. If you're answering those questions, then I know that you know what you're doing.
Okay.
So everybody has to fill one out.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And I never knew this about all of the billing companies. You all have your own assessment. And I guess you had to develop it on your own, right? Because did you hire somebody without it at first, without an assessment, and then realize, oh, I needed one? Or did you know going in you needed one?
I knew going in.
Okay. All
I
right. You
knew
wanted to
going.
make sure they knew at least what you knew, to a certain level. I remember talking to one billing company owner and she was like, yeah, after two people told me they knew what they were doing and I'd work with them, she'd known them for a long time, the same area. So just because they worked in their office for so long, she thought they knew what they were doing. And then she realized she didn't understand secondary insurance. Like she had to explain it. And then she started to realize, oh my gosh, she's been writing off this for the office she's been in for 10 years. Like, that's kind of crazy. So
Yeah, that is
yeah,
kind of
so just
crazy.
just the fact that they've been working for 10, 15 years, that's not enough for you.
No, it's just not. It's
Okay.
not.
All right.
Right.
And what about the people who don't pass the assessment? Do they ever come back to you and are like, hey, that I giving me another try or anything like that? Do you ever see a repeat person come back?
I haven't as of yet. I've not. Then again, we've only been since July of last year.
Mhm.
So, not just still kind of with my own company,
Yeah.
still kind of new to the game. But I've not had anyone come back, but I have had lots of people tell me that it was too hard. I can't.
But you found people to pass it, so it
Right.
must be.
I did. I found people to pass it. It's not, I'm going to be honest. I pick and choose too from a lot of different people.
Mhm.
Like there are different people that I work with in the dental billing community or that I'm friends with, and they'll offer me, some information. Hey, ask this question or that. So this was not just a solo effort that it's actually just my assessment. I've had other people help me with that assessment that are in DRN, so that we could put together a really good assessment and just weed out those people who say they can do it, but really can't.
And I think that for somebody who's listening who wants to get into dental billing, either as a biller or work or owning their own company, the fact is like you might not be at a certain level and you think you are. And that is humbling. I mean, it's humbling
Right.
for everybody. I mean, I remember walking into certain meetings with insurance companies and realizing I don't know these terms they're throwing around. I think there's always, even if you get to the top of your office, there's always going to be another level somewhere where you're a newbie. So, don't take it as
No.
they don't know what they're asking. Like there might legitimately be something you've never come across.
Right.
And this is very common in other offices. So,
Well, everyone learns every day.
yeah,
I learn every day. I'm still learning every single day. So we all are. And there's nothing, to be embarrassed about as far as that is concerned.
yeah. Well, so let's go ahead and start wrapping this up. I would love to know, is there anything you want to tell our audience to make their billing better? Like if they say to you, Michelle, I can't hire you, I just don't have the budget or whatever. What is one thing you could say to them? Okay, well, in the meantime, make sure you do this.
In the meantime, make sure that you are running your AR reports and following up on all open claims over 30 days old. Someone needs to be doing that, or several people need to be doing that. I would suggest not having the person who follows up on claims posting payments. Somebody else in the office should post payments. If one person is following up on claims, post your payments ASAP, and don't forget to work your rejections.
Okay.
Rejections, yeah, that gets left quite a bit, I noticed. So
Yeah.
if you're working your rejections and you send that claim right back right away, you still may get it within that 30-day time frame. If you let it sit for 30 days and then say, oh, it rejected 2 days after I sent it, then that's money that was sitting there that you could have already had.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
gave us actually a lot, not just one. I mean, honestly, the whole thing about working rejections, super important. I don't think people do it enough. In fact, the data on the medical side, which probably translate to the dental side, like most claims are not appealed that
No.
are zero payments. They're not
Right.
appealed. And then what you said about the person who's putting in the payment and the person who's doing the aging, that is so important because there is the opportunity if you have somebody that's not great ethically, there is the opportunity for them to cover up a lot of mistakes or issues, or in worst case scenario, embezzlement.
Are you a dental biller feeling overwhelmed and isolated? I get it. The world of revenue cycle management is complex and ever-changing. That's why I created Dental Revenue Network. Our membership community was created to help you become a better revenue cycle manager and small business operator. Say goodbye to feeling alone and hello to a supportive community of dental billing professionals. Here's what you'll get: monthly billing focused meetings with peers and experts, business building sessions to elevate your career, resource libraries tailored for billers and billing company owners, introductions to cutting edge RCM technologies and companies, and a vibrant community for networking and support. Ready to transform your dental billing experience? Visit dentalrevenuenetwork.com today. Don't wait. Join us now and navigate the business of RCM with confidence.
So that honestly is huge. I'm so glad. So all that gold you just gave us, that's pretty cool. I want to thank you very much for being on, Michelle. So how are they going to find you? How do people find you?
IntegrityDentalBilling.net is the website. Phone number is 941-382-7577. And Teresa, for anyone who's listening to this podcast this evening, I will give them a $500 discount on their first month of service, provided they mention your podcast.
Oh, that's really nice of you. Listen, that's awesome. And dear listeners, you know that I don't ever get a kickback or anything like that. If you decide to use Michelle's services, that's coming straight off of your side. So that's very generous. Thank you very much for that. So again, integritydentalbilling.net, go and check out her website. I know she just put up some new video because we talked about that on your website and part of the business building side of Dental Revenue Network. And I want to thank you very much for sharing these tips with the audience. I just think, honestly, the way medical billing and dental billing is going, it's just too much sometimes for being in office. And I just think the smart way to go nowadays to alleviate burnout, but also to just be really efficient, is to outsource. I don't even think we've seen the explosion yet.
Right.
I think you're at the front end of something that's going to be just phenomenal for dental offices. So thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Teresa.
Absolutely. And dear listeners, I always thank you for spending your time with me.
We're all super busy, so thank you for making time for me today. The show notes will have any links that we referenced in the episode. You can also find links for my book, events, and my online insurance course, Dental Insurance Design and Management. I speak often around the country on management and insurance issues. Come hang out with me in one of my classes. I promise you'll laugh and learn.